Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First, I'd like to congratulate my fellow members on their wonderful maiden speeches, starting off with the former speech by the member for York Outer and his remarks on budget scrutiny, which I agree with, the member for Wirral West, who spoke cinematically of his peninsula and of the role of reason in political debate. The member of Kettering and I seem to share a birthday week, and I very much welcome the diversity of generations that we see across this chamber. The member for Innismon spoke powerfully about her experience of homelessness, and I'm glad to hear such testimony in the House today. And I'd also like to mention the member for Maidenhead, with whom I share a predecessor, who also displayed an exemplary knowledge of railway bridges, and with whom I'm sure I share common concerns about Sonning Bridge and the congestion over the bridge. Thank you as well, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome you to your place. Thank you for calling on me in this debate on budget responsibility. I strained during the Minister's remarks to find a joke to make about national accounts, but I deemed that it would be too much of a liability. I then considered making a joke about fiscal take and thought that was too taxing. I assure you, Madam Deputy Speaker, there are no more jokes about economics in this speech. Joking aside, I first became engaged in politics while studying economics 16 years ago, and I very much welcome a change in the way that we manage our economy. I'm proud to stand before you today representing my home constituency of Earley and Woodley, a new seat on the east and south of Reading. For most of the households in my constituency, they have never been part of a Labour seat, and so for many residents, I am their first Labour MP in history. I will work hard to continuously earn the trust of every one of my constituents, although I think it may be some time before I win over our former member for Maidenhead, Theresa May. First, I want to give thanks to 4 of my predecessors. Matt Rodder, now the Honourable Member for Reading Central, is well loved by his former constituents in my seat. Matt's hard work, alongside the work of his predecessors and our Labour group on Reading Borough Council, connected the Elizabeth line to Reading. My other predecessors have retired from the House of Commons, and for Theresa May, the former member for Maidenhead, that retirement is extremely well earned. She stepped up to lead our country at a time of crisis, proving the maxim that it takes a woman to clean up the mess the men have left behind. But even at the height of her national responsibilities, she was always present and well respected in her constituency. John Redwood, the former member for Wokingham, was a man of conviction and authenticity, and I respect that very much in a politician, even though I do not share many of his convictions. Finally, Alok Sharma, the former member for Reading West, displayed international leadership, convening crucial climate talks as the president of COP. For the first time in history, we now have 3 constituencies in Reading, and what's more, 3 Labour MPs. Yay! Earley and Woodley has become a new constituency because of the families who have chosen to settle there, moving out from central Reading, from London, the rest of the UK, and indeed the rest of the world. It's a success story for house building as well as for multiculturalism. It's a beautiful area stretching from Sonning on the banks of the Thames to Shinfield on the banks of the River Loddon. And in Earley, my family and I live within dog walking distance of 4 lakes and woodlands. I want to ensure that future generations have access to nature and to affordable housing, because both have been under threat for too long. Sonning, of course, has a long history, featuring in the Domesday Book, but most of the area in my constituency has been built more recently. After the First World War, Reading contributed to the national campaign to house returning soldiers by building homes in Whitley and Whitley Wood. The area is now home to Reading Football Club. There's high-flying history in Woodley too, which produced aircraft during the Second World War. Most of the houses in Earley, including my own, were built from the 1960s onwards, and at one point in the 1980s, the area was the largest housing development in Europe. Shinfield Parish, which covers Spencer's Wood, 3 Mile Cross, and Graiseley, has had the most recent developments. Alongside the Shinfield Studios, the largest new film studios in the UK, we also have the Shinfield Players, a community theatre. Our constituency is not, however, without its challenges. In many parts of the constituency, the building of infrastructure has not kept pace with the needs of residents, and we need a new Royal Berkshire Hospital. We need to ensure that new investments benefit local people. We face deprivation too, and I will support our grassroots community organisations to work alongside local authorities on regeneration. For those living in our new builds, reform of the leaseholding system is much needed, and I look forward to working on all these points with our new government. At the heart of my constituency is the University of Reading, which does world-leading research into climate science and meteorology, and we're also home to the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts. Now, there's been much competition in the debate this afternoon for who has the sunniest constituency, and although my constituency may not enter that competition, it surely holds the power to adjudicate the winner. The research prowess of the University of Reading, as well as the Thames Valley cluster of science and technology giants, has made our area prosperous as well as diverse. And we are proud of our diversity. Our diversity makes us stronger. Yet there are those who seek to divide us and to weaponize our country's problems to turn us against ourselves. It's clear that we do face many problems. It's clear that the politics of the past has failed to deliver. And in conversations with our residents, I've heard again and again the despair that's crept into our democracy. But I fundamentally believe our democracy is worth fighting for. I was born in China in 1990, a country without the right to vote. 3 decades later, another crackdown on democracy has led to hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers seeking refuge in the UK. It's never easy to leave your home or to move countries. My parents came with me as a 4-year-old, and it took them many years to find stable work. I still remember my mother, the evening before I started secondary school, telling me, "Don't compare yourself to the other kids. Their families have money and connections. We don't, and we don't know anyone in this country." Now, as a 10-year-old, I didn't know what having connections meant, but I did learn not to compare myself to the other kids. And I think my mother's advice has stood me in good stead. I thank my parents very much for supporting me throughout my campaign. And I feel lucky that we call Earley and Woodley our home. To all those families arriving here, wherever you are from, wherever you start off in life, I want to say that wealth or connections should not be a prerequisite for your children's success. Yeah. And I'm proud to be part of a Labour government which will do our utmost to break down the barriers to opportunity. I joined the Labour Party after university because I saw opportunities drying up for my generation. I studied economics during the financial crisis. I graduated during the onset of austerity. And while studying my master's in economics, I realized how much economic debate had become detached from the real-world crises around us. With fellow students, I set up Rethinking Economics, a charity that campaigns for better economics education. I've spent most of my career trying to make economics and business news engaging and accessible, starting at The Economist and then spending 8 years at the Financial Times, where my colleagues have taught me so much and supported me so well. I will miss them, but in the words of Cynthia Freeland, I fully understand that I'm now no longer part of the pack, but part of the prey. And so it should be in a democracy with media freedoms, although less bloodlust would be welcome across this house, I'm sure. And I've worked in places without media freedoms. I've interviewed Labour activists, protesters, and fellow journalists who gave up their own freedom for their causes. Some are still in jail today. And when I stood for election, some of my friends told me I was brave, given the abuse and violence against women in our society and in politics, which I have suffered and which we must address. But I think I would be so lucky to have a fraction of the bravery of some of my former interviewees. Their determination makes me even more determined to defend and improve our democracy, which has to be constantly renewed through our actions. Our democracy has to be renewed through reform, through empowering our communities, widening participation in democracy, and ending the corrupting influence of money in politics. And our democracy has to be renewed through delivery, through building a fair economy that can support people. It is my greatest honour to be part of a government that will do both. Yeah.